Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively. And you also need to be careful with your computer's defense as well. If you need a VPN, go Nord. NordVPN.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months and gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. So put in some dot balls and turn them into maidens via NordVPN.com/Kimber. Welcome to the Scoreboard. I'm Jared Kimber. We will not be scoreboarding in the exact same way that we often scoreboard today. And the reason being is that the game was delayed and we didn't know how much cricket we were going to get. So I let Varun and Shahan have the night off from that point of view. But I've got notes, of course. So I'll just go through my notes rather than anything else. And if you've got any burning questions, and you probably don't, because if you watch this game in India, I have no idea what time it is, but it's late, right? What is it? It's like 8 o'clock in the UK. Eurovision started. Why are you watching me instead of Eurovision? But let's quickly get through the notes. At least now we know how to get rid of Sunil Narine. You bowl a really good base of off-stump Yorker at him, and you encourage him to leave the ball. It's interesting. Watching that, I felt like that was the plan, that they were going to go off-stump Yorkers to Narine. They probably didn't expect him to leave it, though. Did they? But a little bit of regression there from the two openers, which might be handy for Kolkata because they've still won this game, right? And I think any game they win without their openers going nuts, considering we have no idea what's going to happen in the playoffs, is only a good thing. But this also makes me think about Jasprit Bumrah, who obviously had a very, very bad day. Just don't think he executed particularly well today. He wasn't quite at his absolute best. However, from a Mumbai, if there is any reason to talk about Mumbai, I suppose what you could say is, at the very least, they still got a good game out of him. They still had a good game for most of it, at least until the collapse at the end, without Bumrah doing well, which bodes better for them in the future, I suppose. I thought Venki looked certain for runs today. And is there an easier batter to work out if he's going to make runs based on his first 2 balls? Like, he just looked magnificent, and I instantly bet on his overs because I was like, he looks solid as a rock here. Nitesh Rana came in, and I wonder what we start to call these sorts of players, that play the way that Nitesh Rana does in the impact sub rule, because he's kind of a firefighter, right? That's his job, is to come in when everything's going absolutely to hell. We're going to see a lot of guys, I think, in the future, if we keep going with the impact subs, doing very similar things. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back in one moment here on the Scoreboard with Jared Kimber. A lot of people complain that I'm not a former cricketer, and so that I don't really know the game. Well, you know what they can't claim? That I don't know desks. I've been using desks for years. I'm a collector of desks, old and new, and I'm sitting on a new one right now. I'm the Don Bradman of sitting at desks. So when I tell you that the E7 Pro next generation height adjustable desk from Flexispot is legit, this is like Michael Jordan talking to you about sneakers. This desk holds 160 kilograms. It is as stable as anything I've ever seen, and it has under-desk cable management. But really, the main skill here is that this desk rises and falls at the push of a button, and it moves super quick. And it has so many settings that remember your favorite heights. It really does it all. And I could not recommend the E7 Pro from Flexispot anymore, even though I am currently sitting on one of Flexispot's BS12 Pro multifunctional, adjustable, upgraded fabric, ergonomic chairs. My butt and computer have never been happier than when using one of Flexispot's products. So get over to their page right now for big savings. All right, welcome back. Sorry about a bit of an impromptu disappearance. The little cute girl on that ad was not being cute or little outside my room. I thought Cambodge bowled really, really well. He's someone worth having a look at. What's that, the second time we've seen him? First time? I feel like I've seen him a couple of times anyway. And there's something about his bowling that's interesting. But if we're talking about fast bowling, P.S. Chawla's bouncer to Andre Russell, I really like. I think this is something that bowlers should try more often. But if it's going to happen, you have to be prepared to actually play the smarter shot to it. And this is the second bouncer I've seen get a wicket. And I know Andre Russell wants to hit everything down the V for 6, right? But his best shot off that is just tapping it over the wicketkeeper's head every single time. And I can say that is because when I was a kid, I was a leg spinner and I used to bowl bouncers, and eventually people would work it out, and that's what they would do. A little bit of a concern, I think, is Hardwick's bowling is still just a little bit shaky. It's more a World Cup issue than a Mumbai issue, obviously, but not ideal. Talking about things not looking ideal, Rohit was all over the place. Like, from almost the beginning of that innings, he just never looked completely settled or on top of his game. I don't think he played the spin particularly well. He got away with a couple of runs, obviously, and we'll talk about what happened with Aurora in a little bit. But he just never looked to me that he was certainly going well. And I think him starting slowly was a big issue here. I thought that if they got behind the rate, that once Narayan and Chakravarti got together, that was going to be a big problem for them. And they didn't get as much behind the rate as it looked like they could have at one stage. And they ended up, scoring 50-odd from their first 5 overs or whatever it was. So they weren't massively behind, but they didn't get ahead and they didn't crush the game at that point. And the minute the spinners came on, actually, that's not true, is it? Someone runs at first over did go for runs, but from the minute Chakravarti came on, it looked absolutely different. And, really good captaincy to give him the extra over. Bayram was saying in our group, they have to give it to Narayan. And I was like, no, it has to be Chakravarti. Almost from, I'm trying to think what his first ball was, but almost from his first delivery, I was thinking to myself, he just looks like it's coming out perfectly. Incredible signs. And it was definitely Chakravarti and Narayan who won them that game. The issue for KKR, of course, is that they look like an IPL winning team when their spinners bowl, and they look like the Ilford second 11 when Seam is bowling. Aurora's over today could have cost 1 million runs. And I know it was a little bit slippery and everything else, and Stark was parked. Did Stark bowl 1 over? Is that all they gave him? Wait, I've got the scorecard in front of me. I can check this. He bowled 1 over and went for 12. I went for 11. And they didn't bowl him again. They didn't bowl him at the end of this game when they needed wickets. They didn't bowl him at the end of this game when they were massively ahead. Crazy. The one good sign of their seam bowling, of course, is that Andre Russell keeps getting wickets. That's absolutely huge because at the moment, he's doing Stark's job. He's not quite doing it in the part of the game that Stark would do it, but he's getting wickets through that middle period, which is really, really helping. But you also saw the other side of things, right? Which is when Russell goes wrong, he can go for so many runs. And Mumbai, we wouldn't say that they almost stole it, would we? We would say that they set themselves up to give themselves a chance for the last over, based on the fact that Narayan bowled that other over and got absolutely hammered everywhere. And so did Harshit, of course, as well. But, those are the issues, right? They're going with Harshit and Andre Russell at that point of the game and not with Mitchell Stark. If you're not going to bowl Mitchell Stark at that point of the game, why is he in your side? Like, what is he adding to your team? I would say very, very little. Anyway, Tilak Varma, I thought, did really well at the end to, at least give them a chance. And there was some good hitting down the order from Mumbai. It's funny, isn't it? Mumbai is set up as this incredible 6-hitting team. And in a game like this, they have hit, 5? And we would say that Kolkata didn't bat particularly well, and Kolkata hit 9. Anyway, so that's all I have on the notes of that game. As I said, with the washout and everything, we didn't go particularly deep on it. But feel free to ask any questions. I'll have a quick break because I can see there's a few questions that have already come through. And then after the break, I will get to those. This is, what's this show called? Let's call this Scoreboard. And let's say morning, everyone. And let's say I'm Jared Kimber. Remember that cricket is a funny game. 100 years before we protected our head, players looked after their groins. So don't be as stupid as old cricketers. Protect your computer now. NordVPN is the protection I use when facing cyber shortballs or when rights issues try to dismiss me. Geo-block so you can watch all the cricket you want. Grab your NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/Kimber. Support us on Patreon. Join for exclusive perks like AMAs, live calls with me, and a vibrant Discord community. Enjoy ad-free content, early podcast episodes, and access to my emailer. Plus behind-the-scenes stuff. We've built our channel on Patreon support, so a huge thanks to everyone who has helped. In cricket, I don't believe in momentum. But when it comes to my social media videos, I like Memento. Its AI listens to me so that I don't have to. And then it can chuck in GIFs and subtitles and make it all fit all the different kinds of social media sizes. Memento does it all. It slices, it dices, and it resizes all of your hottest takes, your coldest facts, and your weirdest vibes. Grab it today and make your content start smashing the ball all around social media. All right, welcome back to the scoreboard. ABCD says, could the outcome of Hardik trade dissuade other teams from considering similar big trades going forward? Also, did it derail RCB, Titans, and Mumbai season? I don't know if you follow other sports, ABCD, but big trades do not stop people from doing big trades. A year ago, a year and a half ago, when the Rudy Gobert trade happened in the NBA, everyone said it was one of the worst trades of all time. No one could understand why it was done. They're currently 2-1 up against the Denver Nuggets. And if they beat the Denver Nuggets, they're a very good chance of going through all the way through to the finals and then winning the championship. So even when it's a mistake, straight away, it might still come back. Now, if they don't win the championship this year, Minnesota, it might still be a mistake. And that's the tricky thing in all this. And it's the same with Hardik. Hardik might have a terrible year this year, and he might come back and be Hardik again next year, and then it doesn't matter, right? You know, all these things are possible. So, no, it won't dissuade them. I think you could argue, though, that it has basically ripped the guts out of the Titans and Mumbai. How would it have helped RCB if it had gone through? I suppose it gave him an all-round option, but he's not been bowling particularly well. Yeah, I don't know if it would have changed RCB all that much at all. But certainly for Gujarat and Mumbai, it has not gone particularly well. So would it have gone better for Gujarat if he'd stayed there? Probably not, right? Like he's clearly not in great form. I don't think he's still 100% fully fit when it comes to his bowling, which is the bit that makes me a little bit anxious for him. And his batting, he's just not picking the ball up brilliantly. So yeah, not ideal. Sega says, Kishan at 200 strike rate, Sharma at 100, averages out to 150. Is that better? Wickets in hand so that batters later can bash it without a problem. Or both batters risking it in the power play and maybe getting out. Look, I think you've got 16 overs and you've got an impact sub. You don't need an opener going at 100. I don't think that Sharma wasn't trying to go at 100, more than 100. So, like, if you asked him what would he want to do, he wouldn't want to do that either. You're also putting extra pressure on Ishan Kishan to keep playing masses of shots. And I think Ishan Kishan is probably just below an elite player, right? So when he's taking risks, I think that it causes some issues from that point of view. What else did I want to add to that? I think I said in the notes at the start, I thought they needed to break that chase early. So having one guy getting stuck was not ideal. Although I will say this, Rohit was really unlucky not to get that second no ball. Like, I think it was the right call, but like, geez, if that wasn't measured, if that wasn't Hawkeye, that would have been given as a no ball, I think. Keshav says, do you think Narayan thinks of himself as a batter that brings him success, or does he think of himself as a whacker with a license to kill that frees him up of pressure? Yeah, I don't think he thinks of himself as a batter. I think he thinks of himself as someone who can hit 4s and 6s in a row. I think he understands his basic method and he knows how limited he is. So he has to try and maximize every single ball that's in his area, which is not, like Keshav, I don't know if you've played cricket, but when you play cricket as a batter, you get a full. I like to cover drive, right? Actually, cover drive is not the best one for me. I play short balls well. If I get a short ball from a bowler and I go to pull it, and we're in a difficult position, or the wicket's doing something, or whatever else, I might not always go fully through with that pull shot, right? I might just try and hit it for 2 rather than smack it for 4 or 6 like I normally would. That's a fairly normal thing, right? And what T20 cricket is becoming, especially in the power play, is when the ball is in your area, try and hit for 4 or 6. And that's not as natural. Whereas Narayan, because he doesn't think like a batter, that if the ball's in that area, he's going to throw everything he has in it because that's his 4 or 6 area. And I think that gives him a freedom that other players just don't have. Keshav, under his his burner account, says, hey, Jared, should India be worried to see Rohit, Sky, and Hardik struggling against quality attack in conditions similar to the West Indies? I'm not too worried about Rohit, all things considered. Hardik, I'm really worried about, because if Hardik can't play and Shivam Dubé has to play, like, that completely changes their entire setup. I actually think Sky's been in pretty reasonable form when he's been playing, right? Like, am I misremembering that? Or, I would say that he's been in decent enough form. He just probably hasn't made the runs that he would have. But, I mean, if you're asking on the eye test, I'm not particularly worried about him. So what? He's averaged 38 with a strike rate of 170. So that's all year long. And then Rohit, what would he be? So he's at 29, 145. That's a little bit worrying, but I thought Rohit batted poorly today, but I just don't think he was picking the ball up from the seamers or the spinners well today. Sky, I haven't had that issue for. He didn't make runs today. So what did Sky end up on today? He was 11 off 14. Considering his year, I don't have a problem with that. But the Hardik thing is an issue, right? He doesn't look like staying in all that long, and when he does stay in, it's quite often slow. Like, it's not working. Tara Jump says, hope Russell can keep this bowling form up for the World Cup. West Indies needs that. The issue with West Indies is, where is he going to bowl in the World Cup? I think they're going to have to use him at the death. And if they're going to use him at the death, my guess is he'll probably go at about 14 runs and over. And he's going to need almost a wicket every over to make that work for them. There is a possibility that they just go Russell and Holder at the death and just go, look, okay, we're going to go at more than 10 runs and over, but we'll take a bunch of wickets, and maybe that will be occasionally how we will wrap things up. But as I've said before, they've got a lot of right arm seam bowling all-rounders, which is great, but also, like, just doesn't mix and match perfectly, does it? Leela, and this is on Stark, says he doesn't have a Stark ball. I think this is a joke on stock ball, but if it's not, it's almost worthy of it anyway. Yeah, I think at the moment, Stark doesn't know what his best delivery is, because he's not swinging the ball back early on. He is reversing the ball a little bit, but not enough to be fully dangerous. He's not as quick as he used to be. I don't think he gets the same kind of bounce that he used to. It's not working. And look, I said coming into the season, I didn't think him or Cummins would work, right? And I think everything I said about Stark was absolutely proven correct. And I'm just having a look at where's Cummins at the moment. Cummins is he's got bowling average of 19, so that's his batting average. He's got a bowling average of 31 and at 9.25. Considering his batting, maybe it's not as bad. What's his batting? Average of 20, strike rate of 163, but on low usage. Cummins has managed to keep himself really useful, and now teams have kind of worked out what he's doing and are waiting for that. But Stark doesn't even really have an idea of what he should be doing. They could both end up with really poor seasons. Aman says, thoughts on the situation with Anderson? I think that Anderson was probably inching his way out. I think that England probably told him he had to commit to everything, and maybe, or leave. And I think he'd probably been in a bit of a grey area a little bit. And so they've forced his hand a little bit, and then he's retired. But I think he was kind of going to do it anyway. The truth is, if from a cricket perspective, if he's not going to play beyond this year, it doesn't really make sense for him to play a full English summer. They should get other bowlers in, see who's best there, and then hope they can find a bowler for overseas conditions. But, he's an absolute legend of the game. And so there would be situations at different times when they wouldn't have done that. McCullum has probably done the right cricket thing, but perhaps not the right thing by Anderson. Look, he's been a fantastic player. I was trying to work out recently. I wonder how many wickets of his I've seen live. It would certainly be the most of any player I've ever in my life. It was a pleasure to watch him. First part of his career wasn't that special. Once he got that wobble ball going, completely changed cricket, really. Like, Muhammad Asif might have been, and Safra, I almost called him Safras. That's his nickname, isn't it? Stuart Clark certainly pioneers and inspired Anderson, but Anderson took it to a whole nother level. And, it was an honor to be able to watch him and cover him. If you go over to the main channel and you put in Jimmy Anderson, you'll see many different videos we've made of him. A video with him where we're calling the Batman of paces, some other things on specific things, and of course the reverse sweep, which he should be remembered for. Let's just see if there's anything else that we can finish up with. Actually, let me take a quick break, and I'll be back in 1 second with more of your questions here on the Scoreboard. If you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a 2-year contract with a discount, plus 4 extra months, plus gifts in some markets. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Protect your computer like a blocker protects the stumps with NordVPN today. Celebrate your cricket heroes with Bodyline t-shirts. Explore their player-inspired tees, featuring legends like Sachin Tendulkar, Brian Lara, and Viv Richards. They also have team-inspired designs and options for hardcore cricket nerds. Their collection is a must-have for the true cricket enthusiast. All right, welcome back, and we'll finish up the show here with just a couple more questions. Where are we? Who was I had there? I had the Anderson one, didn't I? Truth Serum says 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert is still a terrible trade, even if they win the title, Jared. No, it's not. Minnesota would not gonna. If they win the title, you sell your future to win one title. Minnesota have never been anywhere near winning a title before, so you can argue that it's not a great trade. I think that's fine, but it's not a terrible trade if you make the trade and you win the title. Chances are, Nuggets might have worked them out, and so Nuggets at the very least might now push them to 6 or 7 games. That will tire them out, and if you're a defensive team and you rely on hustle, that's going to make it a lot tougher. If they would have swept Nuggets, they probably would have been the favorites, right? But this is my basketball show now. But it's not a terrible trade if they win the title. It's probably a terrible trade because they overpaid for him, and they probably didn't have to pay that much anyway. But if you win the title, it doesn't matter because that is the aim of the game. Keeping draft picks is not the aim of the game. Winning titles is the aim of the game. Sega says, Pant missing an all-important clash. How much does that mess with the team mentally? He's a huge miss. Look, he is. I kind of feel like if they're going to win anyway, it's going to be McGurkle, right? So McGurkle and Kuldeep. I've kind of got all my belief in those two guys. But yeah, Rishabh Pant. Also, India wouldn't want him to miss games at this stage. But he's in pretty good touch. But yeah, it's a must-win game. You don't want to lose any of your better players. Aman says, it annoys me that basically all of English selection and media is always about preparing for the next Ashes. Yeah, I mean, that's probably true. It's funny because Australia isn't the same. But you should be preparing for the future, and you should be thinking ahead of what you want to do, as things go ahead. Now, the Anderson one, you can make the argument that they've made it wrong. But I think either way, even if they weren't playing the Ashes, they had to start thinking about what that next step was. And I don't think him playing and carrying the load that he did, but not playing that many games, they can cover him at home, probably, certainly in the short term. They can't, away from home, they need to find other options. They actually need to put pressure on some of these other guys. So I don't have a problem with that at all. Hi, Jared. How come Dockrell has overhauled his game from a useful centre like left arm finger spinner to a serious 6-hitter down the order? This is what professionalism does, Crick Freak. He essentially, he played professionally, in the Irish, for Somerset as a bowler. He was never a particularly good bowler, if we're being honest. I think he showed a lot of promise when he was young, but I think it's George Dockrell that, if I remember correctly, once had a thing on his Twitter account and said, I'm only a professional cricketer because I'm left-handed. Once he got the yips a little bit and his bowling wasn't as good, he went back and he tried to make it as a batter. We've seen 2 associate players do this. Callum McLeod is the famous one. Like, what a batter Callum McLeod ended up being. But he was signed as a bowler for Warwickshire. And we do see it from time to time. Azhar Ali is maybe another good example of this. Ravi Shastri, although I suppose he stayed as an all-rounder. Mark Richardson. If you have a professional setup or that player has that drive, they can do that. And those are generally always my favorite players. The players who come back as a different role, absolutely incredible. Nothing but respect from George Dockrell on that. Last couple here. Varun says, what has Varun done? Keshav says, what has Varun done differently in the second half of the IPL to turn it around? He's just landing. The thing with Varun is his best ball is basically unplayable. Was it the ball today where he pitched a ball on middle stump? It was angling down leg stump and it went over the top of off stump. You can't play his best ball. I think the pitches have started to spin a little bit more. He's not really a flat pitch bowler. He does need some assistance. But when he has a little bit of assistance, he can be deadly, which is why you kind of always want him around. But with him, it is, if he bowls 2 or 3 bad balls in, let's say, his first 2 overs, they're probably likely to go for 4 and 6. right? Because his bad ball is absolutely horrendous. It's really hittable. And when he bowls a really good ball, you know, he can chalk up pressure. I think the ball's just coming out of his fingers a little bit more. I think he's a little bit more confident. And then on top of that, I think the wickets have helped. San says, why does Venki look so uncomfortable even when batting well? He's a bit of a slogger and he loses his shape. And so players like that generally look a little bit rougher than normal players. And odds for a keeper catch where 7.5 when he was batting looked high considering how many times he narrowly missed a ball. I think the thing with Venki is that he does swing so hard at some of those, he's going to get the edge over the top of the keeper's head. So I don't bet on individual wickets all that much. You know, if you're ask Rob about this tomorrow. But if you could see a history in his last 10 games of that's how he goes out, then you can work out whether the numbers are too high mathematically in your own head. But yeah, I think Venki's just as likely to hit the ball straight up in the air as he is to get caught behind on that kind of shot. He's also a bit of a run-out candidate at times as well, and he's probably a drag-on candidate. So maybe 7-5 is realistic, but that you can work it out. Look at the last 10 innings he's played. Has he gone out? Caught behind a few times, and if he has, might be something worth looking at into the future. Anyway, that's it for me. Shorter show, of course, with the rain and the lateness and everything else. But thank you. I can't believe so many of you have still turned up. I didn't expect this many people. But we'll be back again tomorrow after the game. But go over to Cricket 8's YouTube channel or to cricket8.com, and we'll be doing the watch along. It'll be me, Rob Barron, and Jack Hope tomorrow. So thank you to Cricket 8 for all their support. Thank you to all of our sponsors for all of their support. Thank you for your support. And I'm going to see if I can say support one more time. This is Jared Kimber. This is the Scoreboard. And we will see you again very, very soon. Good Areas is our other YouTube channel. And twice a week, it covers the great cricket stories from today and from 200 years ago. Like how a late 1800s blogger decided which games were tests, and that actually stuck. Also, why Ishant Sharma was one of the biggest comebacks we'd ever seen in our sport, and whether captaincy affects batting. For all of this and more, go to Good Areas twice a week. In cricket, we protected our groin a full century before we looked after our brain. So don't be like our sport. If you need a VPN, go Nord. Use nordvpn.com/Kimber to get a huge discount on your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free as well with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the show notes. Cricket wouldn't be the same without protection, and neither is your computer. Use NordVPN today.